This video covers topic 14.6, notes over solving quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. So the top part, the bell work if you will, or the first problem says, let's think back to factoring because you cannot graph this. So if we tried to graph this, we would get really ugly answers. So let's see what would happen. So GCF, we have a GCF of 2. So I will take a 2 out of every piece. Remember, when you take it out, you divide it. So we have x squared minus 5x plus 3 equals 0. I then take whatever's in the box and plug it up. So it's right here. My product is 3x squared. My sum is a negative 5x. So in my calculator, and y equals, I put the product, so 3 divided by x, x. I go to the table and I search for the sum. So I'm looking for negative 5. I can see right here none of these are negative numbers. So negative 1 and negative 3 is negative 4. Decimal, same thing, and I've already hit my product. So that means it's not factorable. So how can I find this information? If I plug it in, I get a really ugly decimal. If I try to factor, it doesn't work. So we need to look at an alternative way. So your alternative way is listed up at the top here. And it is using the quadratic formula. So if we have standard form, which means we have an equal 0, ax squared, bx, and c on the other side, then we can use this quadratic formula. Now, it looks really ugly and scary. The good news is all you have to do is be able to plug in because this is given to you on your formula card. So we're asked to solve each equation using the quadratic formula and round our answers to the nearest hundredth. So problem 1, I have 2x squared minus 10x plus 6. If you notice, that is what we started with up here. Okay, so instead of factoring and instead of using the calculator, we're going to plug into the quadratic formula. Now we're going to use the calculator to confirm our answers, but as you can see, these ugly answers that we got are not very nice. So what you do is we've color-coded it for you. The opposite of b is negative 10, so minus negative 10, plus or minus the square root of b, so negative 10 squared, minus 4ac, so we've color-coded so you can see where a and c are coming from and where they're going, all over 2 times a. Okay, so the way that you simplify your answer is you simplify whatever's out front, whatever's on the bottom, and what's called the discriminant, or everything under the square root. So negative is a positive. 2 times 2 is 4. And then you plug all of this in. I'll show you that in a minute. You plug all of that in and you get the square root of 52. Now the square root of 52 doesn't work nicely, so we stop there, and that's our solution. Okay. Our axis of symmetry. Remember, this is also on your formula chart. X equals negative b over 2a. So negative b, so negative 10 over 2 times a, which is 2. So this reduces to 10 over 4, which reduces to 5 over 2. So x is 5 over 2, or 2.5. Now, in order to draw the graph, we can put that original equation into our calculator. So 2x squared minus 10x plus 6. So we have a graph that we can see. So we draw a rough sketch. We found our axis of symmetry, which comes from your vertex. And then remember, to find your x-intercepts, we find the zeros. You go to the 0 that you want. You slide to the left, enter, go back to the one you want, slide to the right, enter, enter. And that's where the negative 6.7 comes from. That's where the 4.303 also comes from. So let's set up problem 2. A is my number in front, so A is negative 2. B is my middle number, negative 4. And C in red is 3. So we're plugging in the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. So again, this is listed. You do not have to memorize it. Okay, so here's what happens. We have the negative of b. b is negative 4. Every time I plug in a number, I put it in parentheses to make sure that I'm plugging it in correctly. So negative parentheses b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. A is negative 2. C is 3. All over 2 times A. Okay. So this looks like a lot. It looks very complicated, but we're going to simplify it nice and easy in separate pieces. Okay. So all you have to be able to do is plug in and then use a calculator. So negative 4, you can use your brain or a calculator. In the calculator, not in the graphing, just a normal calculator, negative 4 is a positive 4. So I replace this with 4. Plus or minus, and we'll do all of this in a minute. On the bottom, 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. And then what's inside the parentheses, inside the square root, if you notice, I leave this square root as part of my answer. So all I do is take all of this under the square root and plug it in. So negative 4 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times 3. So this is everything exactly like I have it listed under the square root, just no square root. And I get the square root of 40. So I replace all of that under the square root with 40. I don't do anything to the square root. Okay. For my axis of symmetry, x equals negative b over 2 times a. So negative b over 2 times a. So as we talked about earlier, negative 4 is a positive 4. 2 times negative 2 is a negative 4. Put this into your calculator. So if you notice, these are the same pieces here and here. So it's the part that doesn't have the square root. If you don't make that connection, that's okay. Just make sure you know how to use this formula as well. So my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 1. So those are my solutions and my axis of symmetry. So my axis of symmetry is going to be over here, negative 1. And then remember to graph. I'm going to plug negative 2 x squared minus 4x plus 3 into y equals. I'm going to look at my graph. I can see that this one's going to be a maximum. And then to find these as decimals, second trace 2, go to the x-intercept you want, slide to the left, enter, go back to the intercept, slide to the right, enter, enter. So this is the ugly decimal, 0.581. And then to find the one on the left, second trace 2, go to the intercept you want, slide to the left, enter, go back, slide to the right, enter, enter, and this is negative 0.2581. Okay. For your solutions, you need to know how to find them in decimals. You also need to know how to do the quadratic formula because there are questions on your EOC that are left in the form in pink. So you need to know how to do this. You also need to review how to find them using the calculator. So problem 3, Notice we don't have it in standard form yet, so I got to move this, make it a 0. To make it a 0, I subtract 7 from both sides. So 6x squared plus 3x minus 7 equals 0. So A is 6, B is 3, C is negative 7. So I plug in the opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. And again, if you notice, all I do is plug in, and every time I plug in a number, I put parentheses around it, whether or not it needs it. In the front, negative 3 is just negative 3. On the bottom, 2 times 6 is 12. And then under the square root, we plug it in exactly like we see it. So 3 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 7. And we get the square root of 177. So again, with these, once you get to the square root, you can stop. So that's my solution. My axis of symmetry is negative b over 2a, so negative b over 2a. Or remember, you can just grab these pieces because it's the same thing. In my calculator, negative 3 divided by 12. Negative 3 divided by 12 is the same thing as negative 1/4. So my axis of symmetry is at x equals negative 1/4. So that's really close to the y-axis. In y equals, I put my solved solution, so what's in green, not what is in black, because what is in black is not in standard form. And I look at my graph. To get my two solutions, I do second trace 2, because the 2 zeros, 2 solutions. I go to where I want, I slide to the left, enter, go back to where I want, slide to the right, enter, enter. So this is 0.859. And then we got to find the one on the left. So second trace 2, go to the one you want, slide to the left, enter, go back to what we want, slide to the right, enter, enter. And this is negative 1.359. Okay, we have 2 more problems. Problem 4, again, we don't have an equals 0, so I move the 3x to the other side. So negative x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0. So a is negative 1, b is negative 3, c is positive 2. So x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. We simplify. Negative 3 is a positive 3. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So brief intermission. My axis of symmetry is negative 3 over 2, or 3 over negative 2. Same thing. And then what's under the square root all goes into the calculator. So negative 3 squared minus, oh hello, wake up, sorry, negative 3 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times 2. And we get the square root of 17. So I have my solution, My axis of symmetry is the same as the front pieces. Okay, so remember we made that connection up here, or you can still plug into your axis of symmetry formula, but you're going to get the same thing. So axis of symmetry is over here. Let's see what this graph in red really looks like. So negative x squared minus 3x plus 2. So my graph is a maximum. And my two solutions, I have them right there as decimals. Second trace 2. Go to what you want. Slide to the left. Enter. Go back to what you want. Slide to the right. Enter, enter. So 0.562. And we'll do it again. Second trace 2. Go to what you want. Slide to the left. Enter. Go back to what you want. Slide to the right. Enter, enter. So this is negative 3.562. And then problem 5 asks for the solutions to the following equation. We have A, B, C, D, and this is what it might look like on your EOC. So you can't just plug in here because you get this ugly decimal. It doesn't match any of these. So I'm not kidding when I say you got to know how to plug in. First thing I do is make a 0, so I move the 1. X squared minus 4x plus 1 equals 0. So my A, B, and C. Sorry, I'll do them in different colors again. So the opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC. All over 2 times A. So clean it up. Negative, negative 4 is a positive 4. I can immediately mark out A and C because minus minus 4 is not a minus 4. Plus or minus the square root on the bottom. 2 times 1 is 2. I can't narrow down B or D because they both have 2. So note one has a 12, one has a 20. So we got to see what's under the square root. So negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 1 is 12, which would be answer choice B. Axis of symmetry is the front two pieces. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And to draw my graph, I'm going to plug in the blue equation. So x squared minus 4x plus 1 looks like that. And after I find my two solutions, I will be done. So second trace 2, go to what you want, slide to the left, enter, go back to what you want, slide to the right, enter, enter. So 0.268. Let's find the one on the right. Second trace 2, go to the one on the right. Slide to the left, enter. Go back to what you want. Slide to the right, enter, enter. 3.732.